Hello guys, MSR Studios here. Today I wanted to show something a little different, a glimpse into how I customize my models nowadays. An MSR Workbench perhaps? Not this one though, these are already outdated. I've been slowly improving my models throughout the years and there's no better engine to start this new series with than the one who outlasted them all, Duke the Lost Engine. So I made my first model of Duke 3 years ago, as shown in my model collection video from back then. I made him out of a Kato Princess, which at the time was fairly new. Needless to say, this was not my best work. The brown was a little too light and was brush painted, leaving the finish pretty spotty. It ran fine, it just didn't look that great. That Duke no longer exists. I took him apart a few months after that video aired and I used him for parts. His chassis remains in the form of Bertram, who also needs a redo. Since Kato and Pico have made so many of these engines, I really didn't feel the need to immediately make Duke. They were just so easy to come by. So easy, in fact, I found a bunch of small Englands in a model shop in Korea. I snagged two models right away. I got Welsh Pony in the brown livery, which I think looks really good, and I'm just going to keep it as is. And I also got a green Kato Princess, with the sole intention to turn it into Duke. The next Duke I made was right before my first layout build video. It was a lot nicer this time, the finish was a lot better, but now the weathering sucked. I used what I like to call the George Williamson method, which is smearing black paint on the model and washing some off with clean water. I used this method on my other models, like my third smudger model, and that looked fine. I don't know what happened, but the weathering produced water stains near the bottom of the saddle and the tender, and it just looked bad. I knew that I wanted to remake my Duke model, something in a similar vein to Audrey's second version of Falcon, which I carried over into my own Stuart model. So, let me show you how I did it. The best thing about the Kato Small Englands is the way that these models are assembled. Everything can be removed, the saddle, the cab, the whistle, everything. This is good because the smoke box and running board was something I was actually fine with. I threw all the parts painted brown into a 90% IPA bath, soaking them for 2 hours, and brushing them off with a soft toothbrush to remove the old paint. 90% isopropyl alcohol is actually a really good paint stripper for plastic models. After a few minutes of drying, the models were ready to be painted. I used Rust-Oleum Universal Bonding Primer. A light coat was applied to each part, which helps the paint bond better to the surface. To paint this model, I'll be using an airbrush, using a 50-50 mix of Vallejo chocolate brown and orange brown. Orange brown is a very good substitute for a TV series Duke, but the chocolate brown will dull the orange down a bit for a darker paint, but not too dark to look like Bertram. Thin layers were applied, slowly moving across each part. I believe each part got 3 coats. On the mini workbench now, and it's time to hand paint some black. I'm using Vallejo black. This is painted on the inside of the tender and the cab. Okay, this next part is a little sketchy. I'm going to roughly paint a black outline along the edges of the tender and the saddle to obtain a two-tone look for when I apply the decals later. It looks very messy admittedly, but thankfully a lot of this black will be overlaid with a clean white line transfer later, so it will be worth it, trust. The decals were now able to be applied. I am using Microset and Microsol. Microset enhances the adhesion of the decal and Microsol softens the decal to move around odd surfaces like rivets and raised details. Microset needs to be brushed on the surface first. The lining then sat in water for about 30 seconds where it can then slide off the backing paper and move onto the surface, manipulated with a blunt-edged toothpick. Microsol was brushed onto the model after the placement was decided. The last painted detail needed was the gold outline along the cab windows. I used a gold paint pen for this, which I believe is oil-based. It is admittedly not perfect, but the sloppiness of the application is only really noticeable when looking really close, so it's fine with me. The rest of the model's details were added back. These details are really small and can be really fiddly to put back into place, especially the handrails. You can also see how the white line transfer covers up some of the black, creating a two-tone look. And I even added Minnesota crests from Railway Mania, which really enhanced the look of the model in my opinion. The model is back in the paint booth getting some matte clear coat, also from Rust-Oleum. I actually applied a few clear coats, about 3 or 4. They were not thick coats so the details can still shine through, but the model was left with a super durable finish. I might have to carry this over to my other models. Now it's time for the weathering. I don't want Duke to be absolutely filthy, he is the hero of the railway after all. So instead of using my normal black wash, I whipped up a new batch of a lighter concentration of black wash. It worked surprisingly well, it darkened the colors only slightly and did not leave any watermarks near the bottom of the tanks. I call it a success. While the model is drying, let's get the most exciting part done, the etched metal plates. These are custom plates ordered from light railway stores. They sell plates specifically for the small England style, which is very cool. I ordered the unpainted variant. In order to add color, you have to paint the entirety of the plate, wait for the paint to dry, and rub the plates on your modeling cutting board, which is abrasive enough to remove the paint on the surfaces of the plates while keeping the recessed areas in black. The result is fantastic and is far better than a simple decal. Unfortunately, the plates are just way too small for the name board on the model. Now this is my fault. Light Railway Store sends you a preview for your plates and I failed to see they removed the extra spaces I added to the plate to compensate for the overly long name board on the model. I'll just order some new ones later. I was just left with the number plates, which I was pleased with. I used Aleene's Tacky Glue, which is a very thick glue but it dries clear. I carefully added the number plates with a small dab of glue and applied them to the sides of the cab, being careful to make sure the plates were level with each other. I even used a protractor to make sure the plates were at a similar height. To finish the model, I'm going to use some weathering powders in certain areas. Mainly black powder for the tops of the tank to simulate soot and grime from the chimney, as well as some light streaks along the cab side and the tender. To lock all your weathering powders in, lightly dust the model with more matte clear coat. And that's all. I can't really call this a build video, more like a redo of a previous model. I am so much happier with this model of Duke now, and it matches my Stuart model perfectly. It still needs nameplates, which sucks, but other than that, this thing's done. Now let's see him run this line. I hope you enjoyed this video and my model, and if you liked what you saw, consider liking and subscribing to this channel. I plan to release much more Minnesota content for you guys to watch, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and hope to see you very soon.